Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest RE Webinar brought to you by RE Technology. This one's about how to use CMAs to generate seller leads. I'm Marilyn Wilson, one of the founders of RE Technology, and I'm really excited to be with you today. If we could turn our slide, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then we'll get moving. So as I mentioned, I'm the founder of RE Technology, and I'm a partner also in the Wave Group consulting firm. You may have seen some of our research studies along the way. And we've got two really neat people here I want to talk to you about today. First is Ricardo Bueno. He is a national trainer for W+R Studios and knows a ton about how to use CMAs in your business to generate seller leads, among many other things. And then we have April Kass, who is just wonderful, even though she's very sore today. She's been working out really hard this week, as she told us. But she is a listing specialist. She works with the Dave Knight real estate team and has some really good words of advice, I think, for all of us about how to really use sales discipline to be successful, but specifically where CMAs can help to generate seller leads, especially in a market where the inventory is really tight and you're really trying to get more listings to sell your business. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ricardo. He's going to take us through the program, and then at the end, for any of you that want to, feel free throughout the program to, on the right-hand side in your little control panel, type in a question, and we'll be happy to answer those at the end for you to make sure that everybody's getting absolutely what they can out of this. So with that, Ricardo, take it away.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Ricardo Bueno. I'm the national trainer here at W+R Studios. I have 8 years of experience in the real estate industry, and I'm very passionate about technology and how we can use technology in practical ways to be more successful in our business. So a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today is, I think a lot of people use CMAs in a very reactive way. It's just another item or a chore on our task list of things to do. And so I'm very excited about the conversation and dialogue we're going to have with April Kass, who I'll introduce in a moment. We're going to talk to you about how you can use CMAs in a more proactive way. And we couldn't have picked a better guest in April in that she just finished her first year in real estate. And while a lot of agents are kind of focusing on, what tools or what strategies or what can I do to generate more leads, April is really focusing on a lot of the basics to really explode her business. So that's what I hope, that's the kind of conversation that we're going to have today. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce April Kass. She's a listing specialist with the Dave Knight real estate team. She just finished her first year in real estate, and here's the story that I love about April. For all of us that are thinking of, starting a career in real estate, starting a career in real estate can be very lucrative, right? But it's also highly stressful. You have people that'll tell you, you better save money, you better get ready, your first year is going to be tough. It's going to take you a couple of months, 3-6 months before you close your first escrow. Well, April generated her first listing her first week in the business. She generated a total of 5 listings less than a few months into the business. And all in all, her first year, she closed 16 listings. She signed 16 listings, closed 9 escrows for a total sales volume of $5.2 million. Her first year, right? And then so far this year, she's closed 4 escrows for a total sales volume of $2 million. And there's no signs of her slowing down. Just before we hopped on this call, we were kind of chatting, hey, how's your day going? And, April got a new listing this morning. And again, we're going to talk about a lot of the things that she's implementing in her business, but April, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, your first year in the business, and kind of your goals for the year.
Well, my name is April Kass. I do work on the Dave Knight real estate team. Prior to getting into real estate, I worked in marketing. That's my background. For 12 years, I did the marketing for La Rocca Home Inspections, which is a large home inspection company in Los Angeles area. And so I was pretty familiar with real estate, and I decided to take the leap actually because Dave Knight, who I work on a team with, asked me to join his team and said, I think you would be great at this. So I decided, you know what, I've already taken all these classes. All I have to do is take my exam, and I jumped in with both feet. And as you said, I got my first listing my first week in the business. And one of the things Dave told me that I think is really important was that he believed in me. You know, I said, a lot of people told me more negative things about getting into real estate, and people I knew who were in real estate and, who were clients or were friends of mine said, you better have some savings, you don't expect to make any money in the first 6 months and all this stuff. And Dave just said, you're going to be great at this. I know your personality type, you're going to kill it, and I have faith in you. And if you don't have faith in yourself, borrow my faith in you, borrow my belief in you. And I did it, and I just kind of followed direction at first in regards to making contacts. And that's really the name of the game in this business. It's just, you can't sell to somebody you don't have an appointment with, so you need to be going out and setting appointments. If you want to be a listing agent, you have to be setting listing appointments. If you want to work with buyers, you got to be sitting down with buyers. But you have to be talking to people and you have to be connecting, and he really instilled that in me early. My goals for the year are to close 30 transactions.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, that brings us to prospecting and lead generation. I look at, you're pretty active in posting, like on your Facebook page, a lot of the things that you're doing. I see you as very active in the community. In the year that you've been a real estate agent, I take a look at you and I know what market you service. I know that you're very active, and I know that you're very knowledgeable. I think of you as the local market expert when it comes to selling real estate in Pasadena, Mount Washington, the area where you and I kind of both grew up. But let's talk about,
there I am.
what you did that first year and the kinds of things that you do to generate those leads, because you're right. If we want to be successful in this business, we got to get in front of people.
Yeah.
So
well,
I think it's important.
I think it's important to find something that you really connect with when it comes to prospecting, because it should be fun for you, I think. I mean, not that everything you do is going to be fun, but if you're going to be doing it day after day after day, I think it's important to find the thing you really like. Now, I'm not really too thrilled about being on the phones, although I do that. I do pick up the phones and I do get on the phones, but I love getting out and being face-to-face with people. So I try to make it a weekly thing that at least a couple days a week I'm out and I'm door knocking around my listings, or I'm at open houses and meeting people face-to-face at open houses. I do some networking meetings as well, but for me, I find that leads tend to come from the door knocking and the open houses when it comes to face-to-face connecting with people. And, the phones, I use them to reach out to people that either, I meet on those open houses and I follow up with them, or I meet them on those door knocking and I follow up with them, or perhaps it's a lead that was handed down to me, from Dave, hey, touch base with this person, I haven't talked to them in a while, or perhaps it's a referral that came from a friend, a friend of mine is looking to buy or sell. So those are the type of calls I tend to make. I have done cold calls. I certainly have gotten on the phones and used those scripts. But I prefer door knocking and I prefer open houses. I'm happy to share with you, a little bit about the scripts, because I think it's not just doing the activity, but it's what you say when you're there and knowing.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
So I think I had asked you, you do generate a lot of business and listing appointments when you're door knocking and hosting those open houses. When I was looking up people to talk to that are using CMAs in a very proactive way, I look at you and you have 9 pages and dozens upon dozens of CMAs that you've created for people. How do you get business from those open houses and when you're out in the field door knocking and working your sphere?
Well, I'll actually tell you what my basic script is. I'm not, I don't have it written down to share or anything, but you're welcome to take notes if you're on the call. On door knocking, I like to door knock either around a just listed or a just sold. My favorite way to door knock is when we have an open house, because I have a very specific reason to be there. But I also love door knocking right after we sell something, especially when it sells for over asking. So I'll give you kind of 2 quick scripts. If I were door knocking around an open house, I would say, knock, knock, knock. Hi, I'm April Kass with the Dave Knight Real Estate Team. We just listed a house down the street at 333 Main Street, and we're having an open house this weekend. So I'm just knocking the neighbors to invite you to our open house and find out who you know who might like to move into your neighborhood. Who do you know from work, from school, from, whatever. I'll usually go through a few things like that. Then I'll let them answer, and then I'll say, great. And you know, a lot of times in this market, we've got multiple buyers coming in, and this isn't going to be the right house for everybody. Who do you know around here that's looking to sell their house? Have you ever thought about selling, or have any of your neighbors mentioned it? And that's pretty much it. I mean, it takes about a minute or two if they've got something to, you know, if they want me to do a CMA for them, they want me to pull comps for them, things like that, they'll let me know. I definitely generate leads that way, and it also just gives me contacts and what I call nurtures, you know, people who maybe they're not ready right now, they're not thinking of it now, but I can keep in touch with them.
Those are like
And
the
then,
perfect conversation starters. Asking
yeah,
those questions.
exactly. Great conversation starters, especially if you want to work in a neighborhood. It just starts putting your face out there so you become that local market expert. And then on after we sell, I love to knock, especially if we sell over asking, and I go knocking and I say, hey, you know, you might remember me. I came by here, you know, about a month or two back, and we had that property for sale. Well, we just sold it, and you know, we had 7 offers on that property, so 6 people missed out. I'm knocking the neighbors to find out who you know around here that could use some buyers. Who do you know that's thinking of selling their property? And it's, you know, you're walking there with, they just met you a couple months ago or may have met you. You know, you've already been by their house. You've already left a flyer. They know you sold this property. And that's just such a wonderful way to connect with people and say, we've got 6 people who've totally missed it. Who else, you know, wants to sell? These people want to buy in this neighborhood. So that's
Right.
the basic door knocking script I use. And I'm happy to give you my open house script as well if you'd like.
Yeah, no, of course. A lot of people, I think a lot of people think of an open house as, you know, another chore, another thing to do. Is it effective?
I love
But I
open
like that you
houses.
ask a lot of the right questions. So yeah.
Open houses are like probably my favorite way to connect with people. Door knocking exercise, so there's like a 2-banger right there. But open houses are, you know, I mean, the nice thing about an open house that's different than door knocking is that everyone that walks through the door generally is in there because they're either thinking of buying or selling. There are some nosy neighbors, but a lot of times those nosy neighbors are thinking of selling, and they want to check out the, you know, neighbor's property so they can kind of see, well, this one's listed at $849. What could mine sell for? So the first thing I do when they walk in is I ask them to sign into my, you know, open house sheet, and I have a very specific format for that where I try to get information from them. And then I say, so what brought you in here? And they'll, you know, tell me, oh, you know, we're just looking in the neighborhood and we saw this on Redfin. Oh, great. So are you thinking of buying in this neighborhood? Yeah, we are. You know, we like the neighborhood a lot. And okay, wonderful. What kind of property are you looking for? And they'll usually tell you a little bit about that. Oh, that sounds like it might be something that's right up your alley. And where are you living now? So that's an important question. Where are you living now? It gets you a little bit of information about them. And then when they tell you where they're living, oh, we live in Pasadena. Oh, great. And do you rent or do you own? That's another important question because then you know, like,
That's the
their
money
first,
question.
right, are they a first-time home buyer? Are you going to represent them as a buyer? Or are, you know, do they own it and maybe they need to sell it? So the money question is really when they say we own, for me, this is the money question because I want to generate listings. Oh, we own, you know, we own our house. Oh, great. And are you thinking of upgrading into a larger house? Yeah, we are. And are you going to need to sell in order to buy? That's the money question. Are you going to need to sell in order to buy? That's a really important question to ask, and that's where I end up setting a lot of appointments or connecting with a lot of sellers. And with neighbors, I do the very same thing. If they say, we're just neighbors, they say, okay, where do you live? We live right up the street from here. Oh, man, it's such a great neighborhood. What brought you in here today? You just want to check it out, or are you thinking of selling your place? I used to feel uncomfortable asking those questions, and I just don't anymore. And I think it's important to push past that. One of the affirmations I tell myself every morning is, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. And once you get past the discomfort of asking questions that seem like, oh, that's being pushy, or they just start coming out naturally, and they don't feel pushy. They just feel like conversational.
Yeah, I think almost I've been talking to you a lot over the last couple of weeks as we kind of prep for the call, and every time I talk to you, you're always telling me how you just generated, you know, X amount of listing appointments this weekend just off of an open house.
Yeah.
So asking those questions, it works.
Yeah, and I generate a lot of buyer leads as well on open houses, tons. So if you want to work with buyers, I mean, definitely There are listing agents in your office, if you don't have your own listings, that are, you know, dying to have someone sit their open houses because they've got however many listings and they don't have enough people to hold those for them. So go ask someone in your office and, you know, say, I'm here, I'd love to hold an open house for you. And then just give them good feedback about the open house. That's all they care about really, is the feedback for their seller. If you give them, hey, this many parties came through, there was signs of offers or there wasn't, but we had this kind of feedback. If you give that type of feedback to listing agents, they'll ask you again and again to sit their open houses. We need people to sit ours all the time.
So here's, and I know that April does this with their team, but I'd like to talk for a moment about digital lead generation. So, you know, there's only so many hours in a day for us to talk to prospects, door knock, cold call, and do all of those things. We can only reach so many people in a day. What's cool and what I see other agents doing in addition to April's team and the Dave Knight Real Estate team is they'll engage in these digital lead gen campaigns. So here's a pretty neat ad, a flyer that another agent uses to advertise and generate seller leads online.
I just met this guy. He's awesome. He's amazing. Tons of listings.
Top producer.
Yeah, we sat on a panel together. What a great guy. Sorry. Go ahead.
So, no, what's awesome is like April. April's targeting listings are just sold. She goes and she canvasses the neighborhood and she's asking, you know, very good questions to try to get to that coveted listing appointment. What Ray does to enhance those efforts digitally is he purchased a custom domain, raishomevalues.com. A domain like that costs you $10 on GoDaddy. You own it for the year. And then what he does is he generates, or he does these flyers that he sends out to 250 houses within an immediate radius of a property that he either just listed or that he just sold. So on one side of the flyer, it's the details on the listing. And then on the other side of the flyer, it's a big advertisement. Hi, I'm Ray Fernandez. Visit raishomevalues.com and get an instant value, get your instant home value now. When a consumer goes and types in that address, it takes them to his custom What's My Home Worth website. And this What's My Home Worth website is a tool that we include with every cloud CMA account. But what happens is the consumer comes here, they enter their address, and they get back a quick CMA, right? So we live in an information now age where consumers, they want access to information now. They want it quickly, right? And rather than going to websites like Zillow, where it's oftentimes that information or that data is inaccurate, you know, being able to provide that, being able to provide a branded CMA with all of your contact information and positioning yourself as a local market expert, that's a very, very powerful tool. And it's a great complement to all of those things that you're doing in face-to-face, right? And enhancing your lead generation by running these digital campaigns. So here's a great example. You know, agents will ask me, well, how do I advertise this website, Ricardo? It's really easy. You can link to it in the navigation of your website. So your website usually has a home page, a home tab, about, contact, etc. Put a tab in there that says home values, and boom, that redirects to your What's My Home Worth landing page. And then we have other agents that'll run Facebook ads. So if you want to take a picture of this screen and swipe this ad, this is a very effective ad. But here's an agent in New Jersey that's also using the What's My Home Worth landing pages, and the ad that he ran was, did you know Bloomfield home values are up 14% over the last 24 months? It's true. The value of your home may surprise you. Find out what it might be worth now for free. You click on that image and it goes to, again, a What's My Home Worth website where a consumer enters their information and they get an instant quick CMA. In this particular ad, to show you and give you some sort of gauge as to the effectiveness and the low cost, he targeted men and women ages 25 to 65, English-speaking only, within a 1-mile radius of a specific zip code that he's farming. So he sends out mailers to this farm, right? Some people will get those mailers, other people toss it aside as junk mail. But now he's targeting them online, right? He's reaching those people online, so he's trying a lot of different methods. Generated 3 seller leads. So 3 people clicked on the ad within the first couple of hours of running. 3 people clicked on the ad and 3 people gave their name, email address, and phone number. Those leads cost them in total $1.98. It's about 68 cents per lead. So this is a very, very effective way. If you're in a position now where you're trying to get from 10 to 20 transactions, you want to generate more leads, run a Facebook ad to drive people to that page. But I'd like to ask you all a question as we move into the next section. What percentage of sellers do you think interview more than one agent? So what percentage of sellers do you think interview more than one agent? When you think about the number of people that you're going up against, right? It's important for us to put our best foot forward, right? To make a good first impression with that client, but also to demonstrate our knowledge and expertise above and beyond all the other agents that are being interviewed. But the answer to that question is what percentage of sellers, and then April and I have talked about this. I think we're still running the poll. Sorry.
It's all right. I saw a little screen that showed. Oh, there we go.
The answer is 82. April, when I asked you, you said that number should be higher.
I feel like that number is higher just given how many listing appointments I go on and how many of them are interviewing more than one agent. I would say 95% of the listing appointments I go on, you know, at least 9 out of 10 are interviewing more than one agent, many times 3 agents. As a new agent, I remember feeling a little bit daunted by that, you know, like I'm going up against, I was going up against a agent in my marketplace that is like really well known and has, you know, years on me and had obviously, you know, something to sell her clients on, like here's my track record. And it was my third listing. And I won the listing over her and another agent that these people met with. I think based a lot on my personality and the fact that I was sort of young and, you know, energetic. But
they knew you were going to put the work in to get the job done right.
And they actually told me who they were interviewing, which was interesting. And I said, oh, wow, you're interviewing some really well-known agents, you know. And that's great. And, you know, I'm sure that we all have different things to bring to the table. I'm sure we all have different things to offer. And here's, you know, sort of my unique value proposition, what I think I bring to the table. And I'm confident I can sell your home. And we did, and we sold their home with multiple offers for $50,000 over asking, and they were very happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the next section, crafting the perfect CMA. I think a lot of times we'll do a CMA just to do a CMA, but what I like about how you're structuring your CMAs, the more and more you and I talked, you use the CMA to really help guide your pricing strategy and the discussion that you have with the client about realistically pricing that home for sale so that you don't develop this track record for a bunch of expired listings, right?
Yeah, so that's one of the things we've kind of chatted about over the last couple of weeks too is, you know, being that I've been in the business just a little over a year, I've had, you know, there's learning experiences that come with that. And now I'm really, you know, at first it was like, well, I want to get the listing, and I would listen a lot to what the client told me about the value of their home, even if I had, you know, information that didn't, you know, necessarily lead me in that direction. And I took some listings I wish that I could go back and do differently. And if I can save you that trouble if you're newer and you're learning how to price, one of the first things I would suggest doing is actually, you know, asking a couple of agents in your office, or if your office tends to have, you know, training here, we have a lot of training in my office. So we can sit down and take a CMA class on how to price it, and we just had one recently, which is wonderful. But I even went and asked agents in my office, how do you do your CMA? You know, what's your strategy for pricing? So I could learn a little bit about how they did it. And I'm very strategic in pricing now, and I've gotten a lot, I believe, better at it over the past year, and I feel much more confident in the prices that I choose. And I'm also much more confident in explaining to a seller, you know, it's not pricing your home too high is is a very bad strategy, and we have to view pricing as a strategy, not as a destination. You know, we look at it as a strategy. So where we price it isn't necessarily where we end up. And if we price it too high and we sell it for lower, or we don't sell it at all, you know, is that really where you want to go? Or do you want to price it low enough to draw people into the house, you know, get a lot of people into this property so we get multiple offers and we drive that price up? And that's the goal.
So that's a long sort of strategic discussion that you're having with a potential seller when you show up to a listing appointment. How are you using your CMAs, and how are you structuring your CMAs to make sure that you're getting and steering that conversation in the right direction?
There are a couple pages I love. So, you know, when Ricardo asked me to sit on this panel, I told him, like, I'm kind of perfect for this because I do use Cloud CMA in every single listing appointment. The first page that, you know, I have in there is just my contact. Well, the first page is actually their address and their name. And then I have my contact information just because it's nice to have that, and it's like a little business card that's in there. And then I do a map page, which has the map of all of the listings that I'm showing them that are either have sold or are active in the area, and where their home falls. I really pull it in as tight as I can. So if I can do within, you know, quarter mile or half mile rather than a mile out, then I'm going to do that, because the closer we get to their house, the better. And then I'm looking at this. Is actually funny. You have one that that's the one I signed this morning up here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then there are a couple other pages that I love. The sold property analysis is fantastic. So this shows you all the properties that sold, and at the bottom of it tells you what the listing price was and what the sales price was, and it shows you the difference. And you can point out a few of these usually. You know, you can say, like, let's look at this one that's, you know, listed a little too high, and here's where it ended up. How many days was it on the market? You know, and then we can look at one that was listed lower and sold for more. How many days was it on the market? Generally, those are on the market fewer days, you know. So we can usually point those things out to the prospective seller. Like, look at the strategy this seller used. That was a great strategy. Their house sold in 30 days, sold for over asking, and whereas this one that listed too high, it sold right around the same price, but it took them 140 days to sell it, or whatever the, you know, kind of have to look at it and make your strategy before you go on that appointment. But there's usually information there that you can follow. There's a couple other pages. So there's the sold property analysis. There's the online valuation analysis. This is usually the last page I put in my report, and this is because, you know, we have an enemy with a Z out there, and, you know, and it's not just Zillow. You know, there's Redfin, there's Trulia, and these people do these online estimates. And while, you know, sometimes they can be kind of spot on, in most cases they're not. And that's sometimes, it's like a preemptive thing, is knowing that your client has probably looked online, you know, and found out what they think their property is worth because Zillow told them it's worth X amount of dollars. And if your price doesn't match that price or isn't close to that price, which many times it's not going to be, you know, you need something to combat that with. You have to sort of anticipate that objection and be ready to handle it. And I bring this up on every listing, whether or not they give me the objection, is that, you know, we don't know exactly what the algorithm is that Zillow uses to come up with these estimates, but they can sometimes be wildly off. I sold a property last year. We sold it over asking. We priced it at $870. It sold for $920. Zillow said it was worth like 1.6. And that was a really tough one to go and talk her into, you know, because she had seen it there too. And while there were certain things I could tell her, you know, you're on a busy street, you're not, this property, her property was in like close to tear down condition, so she knew it wasn't in good condition. Right. But still, I mean, half of what Zillow says, you know, or almost half of what Zillow says. So that definitely took some, you know, objection overcoming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So having these things like the online valuation analysis is so wonderful in helping to sort of anticipate that objection and handle it when you get there. And it usually, the information kind of follows what you expect it to. It averages everything out for you too, which is great. It'll tell you the average sold price, the average estimate, and the average difference. So sometimes that difference can be higher, sometimes that difference can be lower, and that also depends, are we going to be having to deal with this objection with buyers, or is this an objection we have to overcome with sellers?
Right. So, and then how do you use, because I think you and I talked about this before, you're not including a suggested list price on your CMAs when you deliver with the client. That's a conversation you have with that potential seller when you're sitting there.
Yeah, it's actually kind of, to some degree, a game I play with the seller is having them give me the price. I give them the information, which is very strategically placed. I only pick 5 comps. Out of all the comps, I try to narrow it down to the top 5 comps that are the closest in their square footage, the closest in their lot size, the nearest to their house, the closest as far as the year of the property is concerned. Sometimes I don't use year all the time, it depends on the area. But if I can find those top 5 comps, they almost always flow in right around that, like, within $50,000 to $75,000 kind of dollar amount, whatever range. Right. Thank you. And so they come to their own conclusion based on that, and it's really hard for them to come to a conclusion that's way off base, So if they come to a conclusion on the high end of that, then I try to sort of gently suggest pricing it as, using the strategy. But I'm usually willing to take it even if it's a little bit on the higher end, just because I've already used the dollars to point them in the right direction. I want them to choose the price as well, because then it's their decision. It wasn't mine. Right. If it's not selling right away, I can say, okay, we went with this price. You wanted to choose that price, and that's great. And the market's responding, and it's time for us to adjust the price.
Right.
We don't make the market.
You let the comps sort of drive that conversation.
Absolutely, yes.
And then you're also showing them active properties. So, if we were to list your house today, Ricardo, for X amount, here are some active properties, and
this is your competition. That's
exactly
what I tell them. Yeah, this is your current competition that's on the market. So, if you're thinking of pricing at $499 because that's, you think your property's worth that, let's look at this one that's listed for $479, and here are the amenities it has. Here's what year it was built. How does yours compare? If you were a buyer, which house would you choose? Which house would you go see? Because they're only going to go see a few. We want them to come see yours.
So we created our CMA. Now it's time to deliver our listing presentation to that client.
Right.
And, if we were to ask what percentage of real estate agents deliver their listing presentation on a tablet, right? If any of you have ever been at like a Tom Ferry Success Summit, they did a survey of all of their top agents. And they found that, 60% of that group deliver their listing presentation on paper. April's undoubtedly creating CMAs and delivering those on every listing presentation she goes on. Yeah. Another 31% listing presentation on tablet, and then 9% on laptop. And so I get the question, well, Ricardo, should I do one or the other? I don't think it's ever a question of one or the other. I think the interactive presentation definitely complements what you should be doing, and that's printing out and leaving that printed CMA as a leave behind. And April, I know you do both, because you fire up that listing presentation on your iPad in case you want to get interactive and tech savvy with your sellers.
Yeah, I do both. I don't always have it on the iPad, but I like to save it to my iPad. If I didn't have time to print it out, I have it on the iPad. If it's a younger couple, and they seem a little more tech savvy, I like using the iPad for that. I'm probably about, I'd say 80% of the time I'm printing it and leaving it behind, and then maybe 2 out of 10 I'll do it on the iPad. I love the option of doing that. As one of the other things I really love about Cloud CMA is I can save it to my iBooks, and then I can flip through it with the client. It's paperless that way. I can email it to them or what have you as well if they want to have that leave behind. And you don't need to be connected to the internet once you've saved it to your iPad. So I don't necessarily need to have like a data plan to do that, or I could be in the mountains somewhere where I don't have good connection, and I can flip through it as well. So that's a fantastic way to do it. In general, I use paper. That would be my,
Or bother the seller and asking what's your Wi-Fi password.
Right, and they're all like weird about that, like they're giving out their bank info or something.
But you use a lot of language when you're delivering your listing presentation that's very personal. You and I talked about it. You use a lot of we statements, right?
Yes.
You assume the close, in other words. So what does a typical conversation like that go?
Well, like when we're talking about pricing, I always use we. When we go on the market, I'll say, so if we price it at such and such a price, are we drawing in the buyers? I think using we statements is really important because it sort of assumes that we're already working together and it puts that language out there. As far as being personal, I think one of the first things I tell every client when I get into the listing appointment is, well, one of the first things I do is I just ask them. I ask them what's your goal? What do you want to get out of this? In an ideal world, how fast are we going to sell this? What is it going to sell for? I like to just get as much information. Where are you going? So that I can get them to where they're going. And then I sort of steer the conversation down that road. Okay, great. So your objectives are these objectives, and how can we get you there? Let's talk about how to make that happen. And I always let them know that my goals are to sell the property for as much as we possibly can. And to sell it as quickly as we possibly can, and just to take as much stress away from them as possible. And those are my goals, and then I ask them, is there anything I'm missing? What other goals should I have, when helping you? I think it's really important in our industry to just be authentic and listen. A lot of people talk a lot. Most sales people have a gift of gab. I have it for sure. But knowing when to shut up and listen is really important, to just ask questions, ask the right questions, and then listen.
And last but not least, ask for the listing. Ask for the business at least 10 times or more.
Yeah, and ask for it. I mean, you can ask for it by saying, do you want to list your house with me? That's the last question I have for you is, do you want to list your house with me? Or one I like is, are you ready to put me to work? Are you ready to put me to work? Great.
Awesome.
Sign here.
So we talked a lot about, if you're at a point in your business, I want everybody on this call to start being a little more proactive. April started and closed her first year with a very, very successful track record, and she's going to double, if not triple, her business, her success this year. Did she go out and spend, thousands and thousands of dollars on complicated websites and tools and lead generation campaigns? No. But she mastered the fundamentals, right? She practiced and rehearsed her scripts, and she goes into every appointment with confidence. So you can replicate that success, and with Cloud CMA, you'll be able to do all of those things. You can create reports, great-looking reports that are the perfect leave behind when you're going on your listing appointment. You can do an interactive presentation when you're going and delivering that presentation to a client. The other great thing that we do with Cloud CMA is we're blending data from a lot of different websites. So when you think about that number, that statistic that I gave you earlier, 82% of sellers interview at least more than one agent. What does that mean for us? It means that we need to be polished, right? We need to put our best foot forward and really demonstrate to that potential seller that I know the market above and beyond my competition. Here's how I'm going to help you sell your home for top dollar in as little time as possible. If you're working with an out-of-town buyer and you're driving them around and they ask you, hey Ricardo, I like this neighborhood. What's the market like? You can give them a quick CMA that is pulling in information on all of the local schools, local area photos, so they get familiarized with the area. Importing data from Yelp to show all the best restaurants. We show 4- and 5-star reviews. We don't bother with the others. We're importing the neighborhood walk score, right? We're importing data from Zillow so that you can deal with that objection of, hey, well, Zillow, that's my house is worth $50,000 more than you're quoting me. Okay, well, let's take a look at the comps, right? Asking and using those comps, both sold and active properties, to guide that pricing decision. And if you do spend a lot of time out in the field like April does, you can also create any Cloud CMA report, any CMA report, property report, without ever logging into your MLS system and without ever even logging into Cloud CMA. you'll want to pull over, right? Because you shouldn't text and drive or email and drive. But let's say you are driving around that out-of-town buyer and you come across a property, or he asks you, I love this neighborhood, Ricardo, what can you tell me about the markets or the community? You can generate a report simply by emailing Cloud CMA. So in this example, I want to create a property report for the Brown family. Great. Email property at Cloud CMA. Subject line is the title of the report. And in the first line of the body of the email, you give me the address, city, state, and zip. We'll send you a full property report within a minute or two. Quick and very easy way to do that. And then don't forget, if you're in a position now where you want to engage in these in a very cost-effective way to generate leads online and enhance your lead generation efforts with what you're doing to prospect in your day-to-day business, every Cloud CMA account includes a free What's My Homeworth website. A consumer comes in here, they type in their property address. Then we say, great, we found your property. All I need now is your name, email, and phone number. They click send it to me. In about 2 minutes, you're going to get an email with the most beautiful subject line, right? It says, you have a new lead. Hey, Ricardo, Maggie wants to know what her house is worth at 123 Main Street. We already sent her this email and report on your behalf. We recommend giving Maggie a quick call or shooting her an email. Thank you and have a great day, right? But for those of you that are on this call and you're trying to generate more leads for your business, you're trying to be more successful, we want you to try the techniques that we just taught you on this call with April, and we want you to implement these strategies. So you'll get Cloud CMA for free, 30-day free trial on all accounts. If you're on this call, you're not a Cloud CMA customer, and you want to multiply your business by 2, 3, 5, 10% and generate more leads, you should be signing up for the 30-day free trial alone. And then for those of you that decide to stick around with us, and as a thank you for taking the time to register early, show up on time, and stick with us through the end of the call, we're offering you a very special discount. If you register now, within the next 5 minutes, instead of paying the regular $34.95 per month or $349 a year or $499 a year, we're going to discount the product to $29.95 per month. Our yearly plan, that comes out to less than $24 per month. And our 2-year plan, our best offer, that's less than $16 per month. Implement the tools and strategies. Implement the lead generation campaign, the What's My Homeworth website. Run a Facebook ad. Try it for 30 days and see how many leads you generate. If you want to take advantage of this offer, all you have to do is sign up at the following link. We're going to post this link in the chat, so give me 1 second. We're going to type that link in the chat box. But what you're going to do is you're going to visit, essentially, cloudcma.com. Give me 1 second here. I'll show you how the sign-up process works. So when you visit cloudcma.com, you click on Try Cloud CMA for free, and you get a free 30-day trial, right? If you click on that link that we typed in the chat box for you, Tech and R16, it'll change the price for you, right? So instead of $34.95, you pay $29.95 on our monthly plan. Instead of $349.95, you pay $299 on our yearly plan, and our best deal is the 2-year plan. It comes out to less than $16 per month. So I'd love to open it up for Q&A. Does anyone have any questions? We'll take it from there.
You know, there's a ton of questions. You spurred a lot of ideas, April, so I'm going to, most of these are for you. A few are for you, Ricardo. I guess April's more interesting. Anyway, first one goes back to your original conversation about door knocking. So when do you do the door knocking? Do you do it the day of the open house or the day before? And what's the best time of day to do door knocking from your experience?
Personally, I like to knock in the afternoons. I like to knock, like, now that it's staying light a little later, I'll go, 4 to 6, 3 to 6. But the afternoons, I find that more people are home. And I'll go, like, I'm actually going to door knock for Sunday open house today. I'll door knock today and tomorrow. So I do not do the day of my open house in general. I've done it a little, an hour before if I have that kind of time, but I prefer to plan my week out a little bit more ahead, and I'll be door knocking this afternoon for that. Sunday.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, the next one was, this is a question for you, Ricardo, I guess, from the audience. When a prospect goes to the landing page and gets to the area to put their contact info in, you know, I think to request the, what's their home worth probably, is there a way to have the phone number required instead of optional? Probably people don't want to put that in, I would guess, sometimes.
No, and the phone number is optional for the following reason. Let's say we did request a phone number. One of two things is going to happen. Well, two things are going to happen. My guess is undoubtedly it's going to decrease the amount of conversions because it's another barrier that you're adding for somebody requesting that information, right? And what I said before, we live in an information now age. If I can't get the info here, I'm going to go somewhere else and get the info somewhere else. The fact that you're asking me or requiring me and forcing me to put in a phone number, that's going to push me away and let me go somewhere else. So we remove the agent branding on that page. We make the phone number optional because the CMA that gets sent to that prospect has all of your branding and contact information anyway. And then after that, what I would say is that if we did make it required, people are going to input their phone number, but they're going to put a dummy number. So I would say that the leads that come in, just implement the strategy. It has all your branding anyway, and when that lead is ready to contact you and engage, they're going to do so.
At Wave Group, just for the audience, we do a lot of market research with consumers, and it's very consistent with what Ricardo just said, is that especially when they're early on in their sort of in their research phase, they want to sort of drive the process, and where you can offer support and just stick with them without getting too invasive, then you're going to earn your way down the sales funnel with them, so to speak. But if you kind of try to go too aggressive too quickly, you do lose them. So we've heard that many times as well. Let me see. We got a ton of questions here. Let me go back up here. We've got, so this one I'm not sure, April, if you've looked at this or not, so I'll defer to, if you didn't, Ricardo can answer it, but the audience was, how did you sort of decide to use this CMA versus things like RPR or the MLS or, other places where they have them, because there are other options. So I don't know if you've looked at those. If not, I'll have Ricardo answer.
I've only used one other CMA, and it just didn't look as nice. I mean, what I like about this CMA is the look of it is extremely professional. It makes us look professional without requiring much work. And once you've set up the template, I choose the pages I want. This CMA could be 30 pages. Mine is usually about 16 pages. I'm really, I love that you can customize it. You pick what you want. You put your picture in there. It looks really, it just looks professional. The other one that I chose, and I won't name it, but I tried one other CMA, and it was very bare bones, I guess. Didn't have beautiful color photographs like this. It didn't have all of the options this one has. So that would be my answer.
Gotcha. Ricardo, is there any other elements of this relative to the MLS or RPR, the other things that people get as part of their MLS membership that you would point out, just so people understand the differences?
No, I can't think of anything immediate. I mean, like April said, I think the biggest thing or the biggest reason our clients use us and continue to use us is because when you need to prepare something quickly, you can create something that looks like you put in a whole lot of effort in minimal time, right? I had an agent put together a CMA for one of our neighbors, and the neighbor said, "Oh my God, you didn't need to put so much attention and detail into it. We're going to list with you anyway." Little does that neighbor know, right? Little does that neighbor know, I just did it quickly and automatically, right?
I think, April, you've spurred more questions than I've seen in any of our webinars, so good for you. You won something else today. The question was, can I get a copy of the scripts that are used for Just Listed, Just Sold, and Open House? I know you said that you don't actually have them written down, but would you be willing to share those as a takeaway?
Honestly, I don't even have them written down. They're kind of scripts that I've worked from various other scripts. I'm going to have to write them down in order to do that. which I can do. It may not be today, but I'll send something to Ricardo if there's a way to email that out to people who request it or something. Is that possible, Ricardo?
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can actually include this. We'll include it as part of the, we'll send all of you the recording in case you wanted to go back through it, and we can include it there as well to make it easy for people to find it.
Yeah, I can type that out.
Perfect. Ricardo, this is for you. Does the system work in Canada?
Yes, we do.
All right. Gotcha. Let's see, what do we have here? My real estate office has several locations. I do not want a map of my main office to appear. We're getting so many, it's disappearing as I'm reading it. Hold on a second. or I want to show the office closed when the homeowner. Can I adjust the map?
I'm having a little trouble understanding that one, but I'm guessing it's in reference to like the contact page.
Yeah, I think so.
You would just change the address. So you click on settings, you click on, I think, the user or the contact tab, and you update the information there. If it's still pulling the wrong address, I mean, I would say just email me, email us, and we'll take a look at it and we'll take care of it.
Gotcha. This was one that I was thinking about going to ask you as well. We see that there's the separate What's My Home Worth website, which is beautiful, and I love that. Can you also add the What's My Home Worth link onto your existing website? And if so, how big a deal is it to do that, and is there training and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, adding that website is super easy. So, like I said before, try it, sign up for the 30-day trial, try it for 30 days and see how many leads you generate. But it's easy to take that link and add it to the navigation on your website. You're just adding a new page on your website. You're titling that tab Home Values, and then linking to your unique URL for that What's My Home Worth website. We host it, so you don't need to worry about purchasing a domain. Ray, he purchased Ray's Home Values so that he can redirect to that URL. But you don't need to pay for hosting to host the website. It's included with every Cloud CMA account.
Awesome.
And if you get stuck, email us.
Two questions for you. People are actually signing up as we're talking. And the first question was, after I provided my MLS, I got a message that says my MLS has Cloud CMA to purchase from their store. What's the difference? And the second one was, I want to sign up. I'm leaving for the weekend. I want to sign up on Monday. Will you still be nice and give me the discount?
we can do that only because you asked nicely.
Okay, good. And the first one, if the first one has, if they said that when they sign up, if it says the MLS already has Cloud CMA to purchase, should they purchase through their MLS, or is there a difference between the two programs, or how does that work?
So I would say sign up through our link, the link that we provided in the chat box, because we're doing the special one-time discount for anybody who's on the webinar. So that discount will give you. And if you have problems, you can call us. You can email me directly. But if you want to take advantage of the discount, then use the Tech and R16, the link in the chat. That'll give you, basically grandfather you into the prices that you see on the screen. So I would say that's the difference between signing up through the MLS versus with us.
Okay. Well, there's a lot about signing up. That's a good thing. Hold on one second. We talked about being available on the tablet. Can the CMA be used on Androids or iPhones as well, or is it just on the iPad?
It'd be used across any device. So when you're creating a new report, two links are generated. One link is to the PDF version of the report stored in the cloud, and then the other link is the interactive version of the report. So April downloads that report onto her iPad.
I just happen to be an Apple girl.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Me too, but it works on any device.
Android, yeah.
Got it. This is a specific question. I don't know if you work on these kind, April, but how far out do you go for comps for oversized lots or overdeveloped properties? If you can't find any comps, within a mile or so by, how do you deal with that? If it's kind of a unique property.
It's very tricky. It's very tricky, and sometimes things are hard to price. And I'm just honest with the seller. Some things are hard to price. when we know that you know, an appraiser is only going to go for a mile, then you know, then I try to stick within a mile radius. For certain types of properties, like let's say a duplex, triplex, fourplex, I'll go up to 3 miles out. So it really just depends on that particular property. If I can't find any comp, sometimes I will go in that neighborhood for the last, you know, year and just see what's sold and kind of come up with an average price per square foot and use that. But those type of tricky things, I suggest either going to someone in your office that knows your area really well and asking them for help with pricing, or if you have a mentor, asking them for help with pricing, or asking your broker for help with pricing on those, because every neighborhood is so different, and I don't want to give bad advice to anyone about your particular neighborhood.
Gotcha.
So here's a question for you. In Cloud CMA, when you're pulling the listings in, you can make details and adjustments. Do you ever make details and adjustments to any comps that you do pull in to account for things like that?
No, I don't make adjustments for that type of stuff. The only thing I adjust are which comps I include. I don't include every comp. You know, I might get 18 comps and then I narrow it down to 5.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool.
Here was one for you to revisit. I think people are fascinated by your sales process, which is awesome. Can you share the specific verbiage that you use when you're suggesting or asking for a listing appointment? So not when you're in the appointment, but how do you get the appointment? So if you're like in the open house situation you described, how do you engage them to get to that level?
So generally what I do is I use the alternate choice close to set appointments. So what I'll do is say, you know, once I find out, okay, so you are interested in selling your home, great. So what we should be doing then is sitting down at your property so we can see it and we can, you know, talk about what to price it at and how to get you into your next property. What would be better for you? Would it be great if we met tomorrow around 4, or, you know, would Monday be better? There's no yes or no answer. So I always give 2 choices. Yeah.
That's a very good sales tactic for sure. And here's another one about, now you've gotten one of those 2 appointments confirmed. Do you email them the CMA before you arrive, or do you bring it with them and walk them through it together?
I think it's better to hold on to it. You know, you don't want to show too many of your cards. It's the same reason why I don't give up our entire, you know, marketing plan when I go sit down with them. But I tell them, you know, we've got a great marketing, and once they hire me, you know, you kind of have to have a few secrets, because if you don't and you tell them everything, then they can go with another agent and just take the information you gave them and say, well, this agent said I'm going to do that. Can you do all of this for 4% or whatever, you know? So it's really important to me to keep certain things left unsaid.
Yeah, I think that's always smart. If you give it away, then they
there are times
to the end.
There are times like I do send the CMA out, and it's usually because they're not ready to list yet, and they, you know, I want to provide them some information that I'm going to nurture later, because those prices will change, you know, and I'll let them know that. Yeah.
Here's a question for you, Ricardo. Does Cloud CMA auto-populate into Top Producer 8i, or maybe answer the bigger question, does it populate into other client relationship management systems as well?
It'll import into Wise Agent. So we have a direct integration with Wise Agent. But when a consumer comes and inputs their information on the What's My Homework landing page, you'll see a card, a new listing card under your CMA tab, or under the CMA tab that says, you know, sent to April, sent to Francis, sent to Lauren. Those are, and then the email address. So you'll have the email addresses for those leads in there. But as far as importing into other CRMs, we do have that integration with Wise Agent.
Gotcha. Okay. And is there a plugin that you can use if you want to put this on your WordPress website?
Yes, there is actually.
Okay, good.
And if anybody has any questions, if you're going to start using the What's My Homework page, feel free to get in touch, and I'd be happy to help.
Gotcha. Let's see. Are there detailed instructions for instant values available for the Cloud CMA? So ways for me to, you know, for somebody to use it to understand how to leverage it effectively? Do you have good training on that?
Yeah, we have a full tutorial library that has videos and written tutorials. We host daily webinars that'll give you the through and through on every nook and cranny of how to use Cloud CMA. And then I have a cheat sheet that I can email to anybody that signed up on all of the how to use the features that I find a lot of agents aren't aware of or that they're not using, but that would definitely make their life a lot easier, especially when they're out in the field creating CMAs and reports for their clients. So I'll be sure to email that to everybody that signs up as well.
Okay, one final question, and then we'll let everybody go. But thank you so much for all the engagement. I appreciate that. How accurate and reliable are your comps? I've used other CMAs, and they were way off. They sent the lead comps at detached homes instead of condos, as an example. So how do you know that your comps are strong? Maybe that's a good question for you, Ricardo.
I would do what April does. April puts, the first thing I would do is I would put the attention to detail in finding the right comps that most accurately reflect the property, right?
The first thing I always do is go on my title company and decide what price range I want to search for my comps in. And I do that by looking at quick comps for that, I use Title Pro, and I find out, so then it kind of gives me a range. Okay, this house is probably between $500,000 and $600,000, so that's the range of properties I'm looking for.
Okay. And then, as you said earlier, you narrow it to the 5 that you
And using two sources, to me, only helps strengthen your price. That you've got two sources that you're, weighing against one another. It sort of validates your pricing structure a little.
And do you talk about the fact that you use two sources when you're presenting in your listing presentation?
I do. I bring both comps. I bring both sets.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Yeah, that's great advice.
And then what I would do is on the cover page of the report, so when a consumer does request a quick CMA, there's going to be outliers in there, right? What I would do is you want to set that tone and expectation with the consumer, so I would include a cover page on that report that says something along the lines of the following. And I'll give this to everybody, and it'll be on the recording, but it says, Ricardo, here's the quick CMA that you requested. Keep in mind that this is an automatically generated report, and it is not meant to replace the experience and instinct of a local real estate professional. That's where I come in. I'm going to give you a call within the next 24 hours. Together, you and I are going to review the properties listed in this report, remove any outliers so that we can arrive at a more accurate valuation of your home. If you have any questions between now and then, please call or text me at this number. No problem is too small or too big. I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks and have a great day. And then you give them your report.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're being supportive. You're being a little directive, but you're not being too aggressive, but you're yet still saying, I'm going to help you through this. Go back to the we that April was talking about earlier.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And you're giving them
Wonderful.
And you're giving them that information, now, because that's what they want.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I think Ricardo and April, your experience is awesome.
Can I say one last thing? Just because Ricardo had asked me, on our original call, and I think it's important, what would be the advice you'd give to someone new in the business, and I would love to end it with that if you guys don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think the most important things if you're, newer in the business, or even if you're not newer in the business, are, to be authentic and genuine and be yourself. You can rely on all of these tools, and that's great, and they help you. But to go into the appointments and to go out on those door knocking, and when you're on those calls, just to be you and really authentic. And people connect with authenticity, and you're going to connect with the right people when you are you. And then also to just, aside from these are tools, they're wonderful, but you have to make contacts in this business. And that's the most important thing to do, is that you set aside time every single day, at least 5 days a week, that you're generating leads, that you're on the phones or you're out knocking the doors. And my goal is to talk to 20 people a day, but you set your goals and you aim to hit them every day.
Yeah, that's the everyday part that's critical. I totally agree with you, April. And the idea that you set a goal to talk to 20 people, so the chances that at least one of those people are going to turn into something interesting, and it's probably more than that if you're good at it, like I'm sure you are, because you're very charming. Yeah. And that's great. And I love the fact, April, that you've gone back to the basics of walking around.
Yeah.
How many
Not
people
even
do
back
that?
to the basics. I started at the basics, and I just stayed there.
Yeah. Well, in the industry, a lot of people have gotten away from that. You just, like you say, you just started there and just remembered what selling 101 looks like. This isn't brain surgery. It's just consistent. If you do the same thing well every single day, business will be good. And,
well, they
and
say
you're
it's
proof of
simple,
that,
but
so.
it's not easy, right? It's simple, but it's not easy.
Exactly
You have
right.
to actually do it.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and thank you and everybody in the audience. I hope this was valuable to you. We really appreciate your time, and feel free to use that link. It sounds like there's a lot of orders coming in that people are recognizing that this is a really valuable system that's going to help them, especially to get those seller leads that are so hard to get sometimes. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day, and go sell.
Thanks. Bye,
Thank you for
guys.
joining us.